city government. 2 months later, Gary, Indiana inaugurated its first black mayor, Richard Hatcher. In Oakland, California, the search for power began on the streets. Blacks had little say in how their community was run. In particular, many questioned the role of the police.
The police throughout the black communities in the country were really the government. We had more contact with the police than we did the city council. The police were universally disliked.
The size of the mostly white police force was increasing. So were complaints of police brutality. Influenced by freedom struggles in the South and in third world nations, in 1966, Huey, Newton, and Bobby Seale formed the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, a symbol taken from a Lowndes County, Alabama political organization. Armed with law books and with guns, the Black Panthers monitored the actions of the police in the black community.
I remember one of these first events when we got out of the car. We saw policemen, you know, making an arrest of some kind, about 20 or 30 people in the community standing to the side watching. And the black folks, one of them says, "Hey, who are these people? Hey, man, these guys got, hey, man, I'm gonna move out of here. These guys got guns and stuff like that."
They were out looking at what the police were doing. We had officers stopping a car, and then we would have a carload full of these Black Panther people pull up behind them and watch them and see what they were doing. You know, they were looking at what the police were doing.
We would follow the police around, and when the police would arrest or detain someone, we would read their rights to them.
And it came down to some point where the policeman says, "What are you doing with those guns?" And Huey says, "Well, we got ours to defend ourselves and to observe you." And the police, "You have no right to observe me." And Huey, with all his law study, because he was in night law school at the time, California State Supreme Court ruling states that everyone has a right to observe a police officer carrying out his duty as long as they stand a reasonable distance away, and a reasonable distance was constituted in that particular California Supreme Court ruling as 8 to 10 feet. I'm standing approximately 22 feet from you. I will observe you, carry out your duty, whether you like it or not. And the black community saying, "Well, go ahead on and tell it."
The boldness of the Panther actions attracted young blacks, many in their teens. Carrying loaded firearms in public was a well-protected legal right in California. But with the emergence of the Black Panthers, state officials introduced legislation to outlaw carrying loaded firearms within city limits. May 1967. In protest, the Panthers traveled to Sacramento, the state capital.
We arrived there, all these black men and women, 24 males and 6 females with guns. And Ronald Reagan, then the governor, was on the lawn with 200 future leaders of America, you know, 12 and 13 and 14-year-old kids. And these kids started leaving his session on the lawn and coming to see us. And these young white kids thought we were a gun club.
Knowing the media would be there, the group of men and women then entered the Capitol building.
They're heavily armed. Whether their weapons are loaded or not, nobody seems to know.
Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Who's under arrest? Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? You place him under arrest. Go ahead. Am I under arrest? Take your hands off me if I'm not under arrest. If I'm under arrest, I'll come. If I'm not, don't put your hands on me.
Is this the way the racist government works? Don't let a man exercise his constitutional rights?
If my sweater's ripped, you will get...
I'd like to make a statement now with this respect. Statement of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense on the Mulford Act now pending before the California legislature. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls upon the American people in general and the black people in particular to take full note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless at the very same time that racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people.
A nation that had grown used to the nonviolent civil rights movement was now confronted with new images of black protests. Later, at a Sacramento service station, news cameras documented the continuing debate over law and guns.
Ain't no sawed-off. That's a rad shotgun just like yours.
You don't know the Constitution, right?
Not like this. Sure we do. We're well aware of the Constitution.
You have no right to take my gun away from me. You break the Constitution right. Right.
The pamphlet says that the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls on the American people in general to take careful note of the racist California legislature. Why do you believe the legislature is racist?
Don't you know? You're a part of it, and you're obviously, it's a white system. It's not obvious to see where we're at.
Do you believe everything that's in that pamphlet?
The pamphlet speaks for itself. It was like being a part of a movement that you had seen on TV, and now being able to participate and share in that movement. When you heard talk about Malcolm, seen Malcolm on TV at that time, you had heard and talked about Stokely, Carmichael, Rap Brown, and Snick, and what have you, and all the different things that were happening, and to become a part of a movement that had encompassed all these different concepts and ideals in its own creative way. It brought a sense of pride. But there was the doubts and the fear of whether you were going to survive or exist, but which became a part of your makeup, and you went on took care of business the way you had to.
The Panthers had not violated California gun law. They were charged instead with disturbing the peace. 6 Panthers, including Chairman Bobby Seale, were convicted.
Well, as Chief Deputy Attorney General, I'd had experience, and the Department of Justice, the state of California, had experience in the 1960s, prior to this time, with a variety of nut groups, both extreme left and extreme right, who were running around with guns thinking that they could solve the problems of California and the world through direct militant action. And we were and had been well informed, and in some cases had surveillance upon extreme groups that carried weapons. When these characters came along, we thought they were another irritating part of the bouillabaisse that was starting to bubble all over California. We needed them like a severe case of a bad disease.
The Black Panther Party's style and dramatic actions captured the attention of the media, yet the Panthers often disagreed with the way they were portrayed.
The Examiner made a report back here in the last Sunday's paper that we were anti-white, that we hold no bones, this is a quote, pick no bones about being anti-white. This is a bold-faced lie. We don't hate nobody because of their color. We hate oppression. We hate murder of black people in our communities. We hate the gross unemployment that exists in our communities. We hate black men being taken off into the military service to be fighting for racist, decadent American promise us freedom.
To present their story and their program for social change, the Black Panthers created a national newspaper. Language and art were important tools of the new party.
I knew that images had to be changed. I know sociologically that words, the power of the words stigmatize people, and we felt that the police needed a label other than that fear image that they carried in the community. So we used the pig as a rather low-lifted animal in order to identify the police, and it worked.
Some feared the reaction that the Panthers' stance might provoke.
We'll just have to get guns and be
My parents or my neighbors were kind of reluctant, kind of standoffish in their attitudes towards the Black Panther Party, because here you had a new dynamic kind of organization coming out doing things that never had been done in the history of this country before. Carrying guns, standing up to the police, standing up to the power structure.
Eldridge Cleaver, who had gained fame from his writings in prison, was the chief spokesman for the party.
And we feel that the police must be brought under control by any means necessary, including through force of arms. And we have never bit our tongue about that. We say it now loud and clear. We will always say it. We're not afraid to say it, that these racist Gestapo pigs have to stop brutalizing our community, or we're going to take up guns, we're going to drive them out.
We were advised by our sergeants and lieutenants and captains that the Panthers were armed and violent, and were going to be aggressive in their behavior towards us. We were advised to be aware of that.
As the Black Panther Party grew, so did tensions with police. In October of 1967, a year after the party's formation, Huey Newton was shot in the stomach in a confrontation with police. Police officer Herbert Haynes was also seriously wounded. Officer John Fry died from gunshots believed to be from a police revolver. With the death of a policeman, government pressures on the young organization intensified. Newton was charged with first-degree murder. He maintained he had been framed.
In America, black people are treated very much as the Vietnamese people or any other colonized people, because we're brutalized. The police in our community occupy our area. Our community as a foreign troop occupies territory.
The Panthers seem to be in deliberate, open, provocative confrontation with the police departments in their early periods. They used revolutionary language, provocative language, and seemed to be deliberately seeking to confront established authority, particularly police authority. But then we observed that they seemed to have a social side, a concept of doing something beyond these angry confrontations.
The Panthers called themselves a revolutionary organization. The 10-point program was their blueprint for change.
And we wrote out this program. We want power to determine our own destiny in our own black community. Immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people was point number 7. The right to have juries of our peers in the courts, what have you. We summed it up. We wanted land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace.
The Black Panthers distributed free food and later developed a free breakfast program for children.
Good morning. Good morning. I can't hear you. Good morning. Good morning. Black is beautiful. Free to it. Said I want you free. Free to it. Black is beautiful. Free to it. Said I want you free. Free to it. Black is beautiful. Free to it.
The idea was obviously twofold, for the specific purpose of serving those people who were directly benefited by our programs, but also secondarily to influence the minds of people to understand not only that the Black Panther Party was providing them this, but more importantly that if they could get food, that maybe they would want clothing, and maybe they want housing, and maybe they'd want land, and maybe they would ultimately want some abstract thing called freedom.
Around the country, particularly in urban areas, young black men and women formed local chapters.
The party grew much too rapidly because many of the young people were very enthusiastic about the guns and about the berets, but they knew little about the community programs that were really our reason for existing.
The growing party still faced the dilemma of having its leader, Huey Newton, in prison. Court proceedings attracted national attention, bringing support to the Panthers from an alliance of white and black political organizations.
You're obviously in good spirits, Huey. Why?
Because I have the people behind me, and the people are my strength.
Huey's mother's here, Mrs. Newton. The black mother.
February 17, 1968. Stokely Carmichael, James Foreman, H. Rap Brown, leaders of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, now joined forces with the Black Panther Party in their call for revolution.
And so in talking about Brother Huey Newton tonight, we have to talk about the struggle of black people, not only in the United States, but in the world today, and how he becomes part and parcel of that struggle, how we move on so that our people will survive America.
See, it's no in-between. You're either free or you're a slave. There's no such thing as second-class citizenship. The only politics in this country that's relevant to black people today is the politics of revolution. None other.
April 6, 1968. A gun battle on the streets of West Oakland. 5 men were wounded, 3 police officers and 2 Panthers. A third Panther, Bobby Hutton, age 17, was shot to death.
Black people are now to organize in a fashion where we have maximum retaliation against all forms of racist, police brutality, and attacks.
What changes have there been in the Black Panther Party since the gunfight last weekend?
What you mean, what changes? We have a black man that's dead, murdered by pigs. That's a change.
Here were men who were saying, listen, we are willing to take charge of our lives. We're willing to stand up. We're willing, I mean, there was the appeal that Malcolm had in many ways. They had a certain subjective appeal to my psyche and to my emotional need to say, yes, there were men in this world who cared, black men, who cared about the community and wanted to do something and were willing to take it to the last degree.
In the fall of 1968, 2 years after the party's founding, Huey Newton was convicted of manslaughter in the death of police officer Fry, a conviction which was later overturned. With chapters in 25 cities, government surveillance was increasing. The membership of the Black Panther Party had reached several thousand and was growing.
It was a battle, it was a struggle, and I think we rooted ourselves in the sense that we began to get millions of black folks to really look at where we were coming from and our stand against the power structure. Now, a lot of people call revolution a confrontation. Really, what you and I meant by revolution was a need to revolve more political power and economic power back into the hands of the people. That's really what a revolution is.
The Black Panthers continued their struggle, working outside the system.